and also those who are streaming from home. We did not have a closed meeting to report this evening. And so I'll go right into disclosure of community interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening. There's none indicated, so we'll have that in reflection in the minutes. And speaking of the minutes, we have the regular council meeting of April 27th, and the minutes of the public council meeting also of April 27th, and that was on 3425 11th concession. And the public council meeting of April 27th, 2021, the ZBA housekeeping amendment. So if I could have a motion that those minutes be approved as presented. Councillor Tonio, Deputy Mayor Bichetti, on those minutes, any errors or omissions? I hear none. All in favor? Oppose if any? That is carried. All right, delegations. I don't believe we have any delegations this evening. And so we'll move right into communications. And we do have 11 pieces of communications, or I should say 14. If I could have a motion to receive said information. Councillor Jobin, Councillor Altenhoff, all in favor? Oppose if any? That is carried. On that, is there any communications, members of council, that you feel you'd like to address? Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I see the number 8, the Regional Food and Organic Waste Management Program. So I'm trying to remember now. I believe, excuse my cat. I believe that we had already endorsed this, but I just wanted to make sure. If not, I would love to show support for it.
Let me see here. Hang on a second. Okay, support of the program or support of the direction. There's
because I recall we received the communications report giving an update, but there's no council direction beyond that. And maybe it's premature to give a perspective on this.
I think there, I believe there is, and there's obviously some issues that the county representatives want to deal with, you know, in the final assessment. There is a report that would be brought back in, I believe, the 1st of June, but the decision's been deferred till July. But there's a lot of work to be done, and in particular with the lack, and I'll say it, the lack of technology that's been brought forward within that report. I'll keep it pretty brief. There's still a lot of work to be done, and at some point, I will need to be briefed, our council individually as well as county council, and I certainly want to have the opportunity to share the report with our administration, and so that we can make an informed decision moving forward. Because the decision we make here is you know, for the next 30 to 40 years, and we have to look at it. Does it complement the county, the new regional energy plan moving forward? And again, there's a lot to be to talk about.
Okay, with that, it sounds premature to give a take either way. So I'm happy to let this one pass. Just have definite.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Councillor Dowie. I think we we're going to need a very good, I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're talking a lot of money moving forward, and there needs to be proper vetting, I think, with our administration and ourselves moving forward. And we haven't even had the opportunity to have that conversation with even the county council. So it is a little bit premature. So I appreciate that for withdrawing, Councillor Dowie. If there's no further ask on communications, and then all in favor of the receipt. Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. Committee minutes, there are no committee minutes to report on our meeting this evening. But we do have reports to deal with. And our first report, members of council, is from the Planning and Building Services. And it's the Planning and Building Services 2021-20, the Site Plan Control Agreement for 1230839 Ontario Limited. That's the Bruyette Manor Nursing Home at 11900 Burnett Court. And I would ask Mr. Hillman if you want to bring that report forward for discussion.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council. Sean, maybe if we went to attachment 2A in the report, just to assist with this. So this is Bruyette Manor, which is just on Bruyette Court, just west of Shawnee Road. And this facility has, nursing home has been there for a number of years. And you can see it outlined on the image on the screen as the lighter pink facility. And as you might be aware, there's a considerable land holding at this location, which has been held for a number of years for a proposed expansion. And the province has recently announced a number of funding envelopes to assist with enhancements to the number of nursing beds available in the community. And this is one of the recipients. So there has been considerable work undertaken by the property owners with our team. And you'll see that there are two phases that are being proposed in this site plan approval. The first is shown as the 64-bed facility that will actually be constructed while the existing home continues. And it will take place on the westerly portion of the property. And it extends to the north and along Bruyette at the north end. If we just slide the image down, maybe Sean, if we can, or reduce the size, you'll see that there's a little bit of an open space feature, and significant landscaping and tree planting has been placed along the Bruyette Court, which we think will really enhance the area, and along the westerly lot line between residential to the west and the proposed facility that is shown in the pink. And then the second phase will be the moving of the residents from the existing facility. If we go to the next image, 2B, Sean, and they will be placed into the new facility phase 1, and phase 2 will then be constructed for a complete 96-bed facility. This includes landscaping, parking facilities, significant stormwater quality and quantity control was introduced. And it really is a very significant proposal. There is some fencing, new vinyl fencing along the westerly property line, as well as part of the site plan approval. So they are very hopeful to commence construction immediately. And this will allow that to happen if approved by council and the agreements are signed, and of course they'll be registered on title. And we'll see this taking place over the next probably 2 years. Mr. Mayor, that's a summary of the proposal. If there are any questions, happy to.
And Mr. Hillman, I stand to be corrected, but I believe that a past date, I think our municipal council did send a letter of support to Bruyette, to the ministry, in support of the expansion.
Yes, I believe something came through at one point on that, Mr. Mayor. And they've been working on this for actually a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, this was delayed slightly as a result of COVID. As everyone is aware, priorities shifted both here and provincially, largely. So they're very anxious to be moving on this. And as I recollect, there was a form of support sent from the town to the province.
Okay, thank you very much for the report, Mr. Hillman. Any questions to our Director of Planning? Yes, Deputy Mayor Bichetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hillman, just a question. If you can put up the map again with the parking that shows a site plan. Would you say the parking due to the expansion has increased, and if so, by what percentage, or has it been the same in terms of what they had in the original site?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, there was, on a per bed basis, a slight reduction in parking, and that was an application that came forward to the Committee of Adjustment. And part of the consideration was that what they're finding through these facilities is that their parking needs are not as significant. That was considered by the committee, I believe, roughly a year ago, granted. And you know, part of the analysis that we'd undertaken at the time was a recognition that the area is serviced by transit, and we're quite lucky that this run that goes through here is the connection first into town and also the first way out and in from the city of Windsor, which connects to the transit hub at Tecumseh Mall, which makes this property and this employment area, which is, you know, it is a home, it's a residential facility, but it is a significant employment area as well, accessible by other than just cars. So the parking ratio is slightly less than what had been provided, but we think definitely is adequate.
Okay, thank you. And I do like the tree planting landscaped area. I think, is that on the north end?
Yeah.
And again, you know, the residents, when they go out with their support workers, whatnot, there's a place for them to go out and enjoy the outdoors, right? So that's nice to see. Thank you.
Councilor Toniol and Councilor Dowie.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hillman. That park area and walkway, is that going to be private land, or are they going to allow public to walk on that, I guess, or how are we going to control that also?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you. That is on private property. And it will be a green feature that, of course, is not exclusively fenced. So it would, you know, have the benefit and pleasure of the neighborhood, presumably, but that really is at the call of the property owners. But quite often you'll see these types of features, very passive in nature. You know, it's a piece of outdoor space that adds value to, I think, the neighborhood. And as the deputy mayor had indicated, it's somewhere just to have, you know, quiet reflection with residents and so on. And I suspect, you know, others will be able to benefit from it as well.
Thank you. And one more question, spin-off of Deputy Mayor's. The parking, so you're saying that they will have adequate parking, since, you know, parking in that area is a luxury. There's not much there, so it won't affect the street parking. We're saying with this new add-on, employees will have enough place to park.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Based on our review of it and the calculations of, you know, what historically has been happening with nursing homes, we're quite comfortable. We think that it's sufficient.
Thank you. And then the traffic obviously would be the same thing. You know, we don't have to worry too much about traffic in and out during a change of shift kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, very limited traffic generation. And although there are shift changes, they're quite often, it depends on if it's a 12-hour shift for certain responsibilities and then an 8-hour for others. And there tends not to be an aggravated condition with traffic. Now, the one time you do see those types of issues is around your classic holidays, at peak times, Mother's Day, you know, Easter, that sort of thing. But that is almost a condition that exists throughout our community. It's not just a generated element of these types of places.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councilor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. And I don't really have a question. I'm pretty excited to see this. You know, over the years, I've certainly been to Briette Manor just on a number of occasions, and I was delighted when I saw over $81 million was being put into the facility by the province, as announced in November. So this was just a very welcome development. I'm really happy to see the neighbor. Well, I'm hopeful that the neighborhood will have access to those additional landscaping amenities in the trail. and because it is a real key part of the community, but also a place where a lot of us, a lot of us will have family members. So just an exciting development, and really, really happy to see this coming to fruition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and any further questions or comments at this stage? Then I need a motion to adopt the site plan control agreement. Councillor Altenhoff, Councillor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Mr. Hillman, you're still on as well. There's another site plan control agreement. That's the Demeter Developments. That's at 11941 Tecumseh Road, another exciting project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly quite exciting. And this is located just on the south side of Tecumseh Road, just a short distance west of Shawnee Road, as you can see on the screen. And council will recall the area outlined in red actually came forward through a prior planning process of about 2 to 3 years ago at the time of rezoning and official plan amendment on the lands to the immediate east of the red rectangle. Yes, where the hand is on the map. And that was a proposal for a small apartment, which is now being constructed, nearing completion. And the neighboring property in red came forward at the same time, and there were some real synergies that developed as a result of that timing, and we are now seeing them realized today. So the matter that's before council this evening is with respect to the property in red. Yes, if we just slide down, thank you, Sean. And it's for the property in yellow, surrounded by a red line. And to the left of the screen is an area for a future potential apartment that is owned by a party that has an interest in this land as well. So for this evening, though, it's for the area outlined in red, and right where the arrow is, it's pointing to a mutual access that will be constructed between the yellow building and the one that is to the east that is under construction and just nearing completion. We call it the Rygate building. And when all of these lands were considered, a couple of things were going on. Tecumseh Road was going through, of course, our detailed design for streetscape improvements, where we've been trying to, where possible, reduce the number of driveway crossings, entering and exiting the road and crossing the sidewalk. And by having these properties having a mutual access drive, it really is beneficial in that regard. So there's a single access, and it does require the cooperation of both property owners. The property to the east, their site plan agreement that was signed a year and a bit ago included provision that would accommodate this mutual access, and now this property coming forward is benefiting, but also signing a similar agreement to deal with that issue. So for this evening, the area outlined in yellow is a proposed apartment building, 4 stories in height, 38 units, 27 are 2 bedrooms proposed, with the remaining 11 being 1 bedrooms. Pardon me. As you go down the access drive from Tecumseh Road, it does enter into a parking area that's at the rear of the building, fully paved, stormwater treatments as well. There is fencing provided along the south property line and along the east property line, where it's abutting the rear of some other residential properties. In addition to the shared access that's between the buildings, there was a vision in the community improvement plan for Tecumseh Road that saw a connection from Tecumseh Road down through the Windsor Housing Authority lands that would connect to Arbor, so that this whole area would start to connect, at least so people can move on foot between the commercial district and the main street down into the neighborhood. So there's also provision in this agreement to allow for the future connection of a sidewalk through these lands. The day that Windsor Housing Authority lands come forward for redevelopment, we would look to extend it down to Arbor so that people can move freely through this area. And with the recent skyline addition of apartments that has just happened slightly to the west of this property, it's important that we make sure people are able to move freely between these areas and on foot or bike. So we're accommodating that as well, as is the developer. And finally, Mr. Mayor, just to, here's an image, thanks Sean, of the exterior of the building. So we will see the shared access just off to the left side. Rygate would be just over from that, and parking is to the rear. And of course, that is looking south from Tecumseh Road. And then finally, the lands that are to the west of this property will be subject to a separate agreement in addressing a number of issues, but conceptually, we've shown, how this may lay out in the future, subject to all matters being resolved. And finally, Mr. Mayor, just I'd like to identify that as part of this, there was a conveyance of 10 feet along Tecumseh Road from the property owner, which is called out in the official plan for road widening purposes. And we take those when we see the opportunity through site plan approvals, and it gives us the opportunity to have the lands necessary in Tecumseh Road for future improvements, and is accommodated through the Planning Act, of course. So, Mr. Mayor, that is the proposal that's in front of council this evening for approval. And again, very anxious, the developer, to proceed with construction almost immediately if approval proceeds. I know that Mr. Vogley, the chief building official, has reviewed the building permit drawings, and this project is certainly about to commence if approval is granted. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Hillman, if you look at the property to the west of it, in that, is it going to also have between the yellow building and that, obviously there's not room for shared access there. Is it going to be to the west of that building, access to that property?
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Right now, the discussion that has been had is for it possibly to also share this access drive, subject to, and then just to get everybody, if we go to the air photo, maybe Sean, for this, with this report on attachment 1.
Because that would be Skyline, right?
Yes, that's one of Skyline's original buildings, and they're making some adjustments. So we have some things to take care of here. One is the adequacy of fire access. So that has been put on the table with the owners of phase, we'll call it phase 3 of this building complex. That has to be addressed in terms of if there's a single access to these 3 buildings, then there may need to be some means of providing alternate access for fire. So there will be discussions that will have to take place either with the Skyline property or an alternate means of providing that fire access. But in very simple terms, the thinking to date is that it would be the Rygate building, the building we're dealing with tonight in red, and then the property to the west, all to the front of the property facing the street, possibly with a single access. But more to be worked on in that regard. And ultimately, something will come back to council. We suspect once this proposal gets off the ground and those details are worked out.
Leave that screen on there, Sean. And the only question I have too is that I see from here as well is that with the Rygate building, which is getting close to completion, that's there. If you go to the back of that lot, and to the east of it, all of these parked derelict vehicles here, and if you look at the building in front of it, obviously with looking at the property line, there's encroachment onto the Rygate property. I don't know, did they clean that up? Because I see the aerial shots, it's dated. Because how are they going to get that stuff out of there?
Yeah, well, actually, yes, I believe a number of it has been cleaned up. But if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, the building that you see mid property with the brown roof may be accessible from both ends, if I recall correctly. But there has been some cleaning up on that property, and its ultimate redevelopment will be challenging, but it's still a site that has good locational attributes and so on. But the definition of the property lines have been made very clear with the development of Rygate. They went in and ensured that there was no encroachment on their property as they commenced development.
Very good, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Tonio.
Thank you. Just a quick question to you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hillman. Do you know if these will be rental or purchased for sale?
Our understanding right now is these are rental.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Not, then a motion to adopt the site plan as presented. Councilor Tonio moves, supported by Councilor Houston. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any. That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item C again through our Public Works and Building Services 2021-22 Financial Incentive Program Grant application, and that is the Tecumseh Road Main Street Community Improvement Plan. Demeter Developments, Inc. at 11941 Tecumseh Road Development Charges Grant Program. Mr. Hillman, you want to bring that report forward, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the same properties we were just dealing with, just on the south side of Tecumseh Road, of course. And with the community improvement plan, in addition to having a vision for the area, it also contains incentives to entice development in that geographic area along Tecumseh Road from the westerly limit at Windsor and the easterly limit at the railway crossing in broad terms. And this application is seeking the granting back of $100,000 of the $320,000 development charge that would apply to the development. And that is a cap that exists on a grant available to any individual property. They have qualified on the basis of the criteria established in the community improvement plan, and and the report is recommending that it be granted.
All right, any questions or comments to Mr. Hillman? Then I need a motion to adopt the incentive program. Councilor Jobin, Councilor Houston, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And we'll move on to item D, which is also our Public and Building Services 2021-23 Financial Incentive Program Grant, Tecumseh Road Main Street. Again, that's Demeter Developments, 11941 Tecumseh Road. Mr. Hillman.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is a application under the CIP Community Improvement Plan Grant Program as well. And it is a relatively unique program, and what it offers is an opportunity to have the municipal portion of the taxes that are increased on the basis of the increased value of redeveloping the site. So the taxes as they were today are at a certain level. There's I think 1-2 homes, I think possibly on that site, and they pay a certain amount of taxes. After the development takes place, it's reassessed and it has a new valuation and a new tax owing to the town. So this program establishes that for 5 years, 100% of the increased portion of the municipal taxes would be granted back to the property owner as an incentive. So in this case, it's estimated to be approximately $29,000 per year over 5 years, would be a total of $147,000. We call it, it's the BPIG, the Building Improvement Grant Program, odd name, but it's basically an incremental tax grant back program.
Okay, any questions or comments to Mr. Hillman? Any motion on the recommendation? Councilor Houston moves, Councilor Tony will support. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Hillman. Now, Public Works, Environmental Services, 2021-19, 2020 Bridge and Culvert Needs Study. There he is, Mr. Bartnick.
Good evening, and thank you, Your Worship. So the report before you, there's 2 recommendations. It's recommended that the report be received, and that the recommendations contained within the 2020 Bridge and Culvert Needs Study be incorporated into the Public Works Capital Works plans. So the purpose of this study was to assess the town's 18 bridges and culverts that have a span greater than 3 meters. And to prepare a comprehensive plan for improving and maintaining these structures over the next 10-year period. A full copy of the 2020 report will be posted on the town's website for everyone's access. The Bridge Condition Index, which is a planning tool that was developed by the Ministry of Transportation as a means of combining inspection information of some of the various structure elements into a single value. So the BCI range is typically from 0 to 100. 0 to 60 is poor condition, 60 to 70 is fair, and 70 to 100 is good condition. So the calculated average BCI for 2020 for the town of Tecumseh is 78.4. So we're in the good condition. And obviously, I think there's some discussion in the report that value would be theoretically higher, closer to about 81 out of 100. Once we remove bridges 28 and 29, which are located on Manning Road at St. Thomas, as well as Little River. And those are slated to be decommissioned as part of the Manning Road Phase 2 project, which will be getting underway shortly here in July. There was one structure that was identified with deficiencies that will need to be addressed within the next 6 to 10 years. That structure is located at Outer Drive over the Collins Drain, and the estimated cost of those works are at $300,000. And with that, Your Worship, I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. Any questions, members of council? A motion to adopt the report is presented. Councilor Jobin, Councilor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Our next report's also from Public Works and in 2021-22, that's Manning Road Pump Station, the Fish Pond Inlet Erosion Repair and Tender Award. Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the report before you today is recommending the tender for the Manning Road Pump Station Fish Pond Erosion Repair be awarded to Shea Rock Construction Group in the amount of $129,790 plus HST. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a contract for the services with Shea Rock Construction Group, and that the funding allocation reflecting just shy of $60,000 increase be funded from the Storm Life Cycle Reserve. So the Manning Road Pump Station was constructed in 2012, which included a fish habitat enhancement area. And more recently, with a combination of the record high water levels of Lake St. Clair and strong winds, there has been some erosion on the east bank of the pond, which has now exposed electrical conduits, and continued erosion could undermine the stability of the adjacent walkway. So our first tender call for the project closed in February of 2021. We had 3 bids received and they were all significantly over budget. So administration believed at that time that this was due in part to the tight timelines that were specified within the contract and some of the DFO requirements. And so we decided to retender the project. So our second tender call for the project closed on April 1st. We had 7 bids received, which were all over budget. However, the low tenderer was lower than the first tender call. So the refinements to the timing and to the approach of the DFO requirements were not enough to lower the costs. However, sometimes these smaller remediation projects have higher costs that reflect the scale of the project. So Shea Rock was the low tender. They have successfully completed other projects in town, which include the Walker Road North Sanitary Sewer Extension in 2019, the Highway 3 Walker Road Water Main Replacement Project in 2020 and 2021. And they were also the low tenderer on the Manning Road Phase 2 project, which is scheduled to start in July. And with that, Your Worship, I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Bartnick. Any questions on the report? Then a motion to adopt the report as presented. Councilor Jobin and Councilor Dowie. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All right, then our standard yearly 2021 West Nile program larviciding. That's a program that initiated by the health unit. And I think that one there is pretty self-explanatory. Moved by Councillor Houston and supported by Councillor Altenhoff. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. All right, Madam Clerk, we have bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first bylaw we have on the agenda this evening is bylaw number 32. This bylaw authorizes an amendment to bylaw 1746, the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw for the lands in the former town of Tecumseh in respect of 11900 Brulette Court. Secondly, we have bylaw number 33. This is a bylaw to amend the bylaw 85-18, the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw for the lands in the former township of Sandwich South. The property is located on the 11th Concession Road. We have bylaw numbers 34, which authorizes the entering into of a site plan control agreement between Skyline Real Estate Holdings, Inc. Similarly, bylaw number 35 authorizes entering into a site plan control agreement between the town and Skyline Real Estate Holdings 2, Inc. And number 36 authorizes a site plan control agreement entering into between the town and Skyline Real Estate Holdings 3, Inc. We're respectfully asking for first and second readings to these bylaws, and if appropriate, third and final.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Two readings. Deputy Mayor Michetti and Councilor Tonio. Any questions or comments on the two readings? I've heard none. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Three readings are in order. Councilor Houston, move. Councilor Dowie, support. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Okay. All right, is there any unfinished business? None. New business. Councilor Dowie, Councilor Jobin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wanting to add one to the queue for the speed trailer. That's Les Bronce Road, somewhere between Riverside Drive and Clap. Just so we can monitor and get some data there.
Okay, and Mr. Bartnick, will take note of that. Okay, good. Councilor Jobin.
Okay, well, good evening. Thank you. Well, just on behalf of the Essex Region Conservation Authority, today is a Provincial Day of Action on Litter. And with surging uses of our conservation areas and along our trails, we've seen an increase in littering of these conservation areas. And so we did put together a small video that Sean is able to pull up, and I would just like to share it with you all briefly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
During these challenging times, more people than ever have been connecting with nature, and IRCA is pleased to welcome all visitors to enjoy the 17 conservation areas and 100 kilometers of trails we manage across the Windsor-Essex region.
We know that access to these natural areas helps people lead healthier lifestyles, connect with nature,
enjoy the mental and spiritual health benefits of being outside,
and experience amazing places!
Within our seas, you'll explore restored tall grass prairies,
forests,
shorelines,
and wetland ecosystems.
All part of the Carolinian Life Zone, where special and unique plant and wildlife species make their home.
Some live here for the entire year,
and some migrate through. Either way, it's important that they have safe spaces.
So in hiking, biking, running,
and exploring,
we encourage you to experience nature around you by looking and listening.
But it's important to leave no trace.
We ask that you please stay on the marked trails, leave wildlife alone, and please don't hang anything from the trees.
Things like painted rocks, fairy houses, and plastic items can damage habitat and poison wildlife.
Please remember to keep your dogs on a leash in conservation areas and always pick up after your pets.
Please use the garbage bins, or better yet, pack out what you pack in.
Use reusable coffee mugs or water bottles.
And by all means, please don't bring your extra garbage to our conservation areas and dump.
Take nothing from this property but your memories. Leave nothing but the footprints on the trail and the grass out behind us. It's extremely important that we all care for these properties and leave them for every living creature within this region. Enjoy and care for each other. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a little bit jumpy there, probably just because we keep copying it, but you can view it again on the Conservation Authority's Facebook post or even the website. And so just hopefully through collaboration and reinforced information and messaging, we can collectively reduce the amount of garbage and litter in our region to help enrich and sustain its place for life. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the message, Councilor Job. And I, just last night I was listening in on a news piece, and part of the problem is the pandemic and the residual remnants of masks. And I didn't realize, but there's over 160 billion masks that have been produced. And as you know, we end up seeing them on the sidewalks and in other areas. So I think your message is well taken. And I want to extend my thanks to Councillor Tonio, who on his own has been out with his bucket and his clippers and his rubber boots and doing his part and picking up litter and so forth. So I think it's a great message, and we should try to extend that. And if we can, Sean, if we can put something on our website and to support IRCA's message and also our community and our own beautiful parks.
Right.
Where I've been on walks and Lakewood and other areas, and what do you see next to it is a soil mask and so forth on the ground. So we all have a responsibility to keep our environment clean. So good timing for that message.
Thank you.
Anything further in new business? None at this stage. Then want to also there's a motion that has been brought forward by Councillor Tonio, and the motion is on paramedics week banner, and that the fee established in the banner policy be waived for Essex Windsor Emergency Medical Services for the placement of a banner on the town's poles on Tecumseh Road near the intersection of Southfield in recognition of Paramedic Service Week, May 23rd to 29, 2021. So the motion is moved by Councillor Tonio and supported by Councillor Jobin. Is there any comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried unanimous. All right, I need a confirmatory bylaw and to deal with the proceedings of our meeting this evening. If I could have three readings, Councillor Altenhoff and Deputy Mayor Becchetti. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Any notices of motion this evening? I see none. Next meeting, Tuesday, May 25th. It's hard to believe. My gosh, we're 5 months into the year. 5 p.m. Policies and Priorities Committee meeting, followed by our regular council meeting at 7 o'clock. If there's no further questions or comments, members of council, then adjournment is certainly in order. Councillor Tonio, Councillor Altenhoff, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. And so that gives us the opportunity to say that our evening's work is completed. So thank you, members of council, administration, and those who are watching from home. Thank you for participating in our meeting. So till we meet again, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your evening. I bid you good night.